As winter came, Molly caused more and more problems. Every morning she was late for work and said she had overslept. She also said she had strange pains even though she ate well. She always found an excuse to run away from work and go to the pool, where she looked at her reflection in the water like a fool. But there were also more serious rumors. One day, Molly walked happily into the yard, moving her tail and chewing a piece of hay. Then Clover took her to the side. "Molly," she said, "I have something very serious to tell you. This morning I saw you looking over the hedge between Animal Farm and Foxwood. One of Mr. 2 Pilkington's men was on the other side. I was far away, but I'm almost sure I saw him talking to you, and he was touching your nose." "What does that mean, Molly?" "He didn't. I wasn't." "That's not true," cried Molly. She began to jump and hit the ground with her feet. "Molly, look at my face," again. But she couldn't look Clover in the eyes. The next second, she ran away quickly into the field. Clover had a thought. She didn't tell the others but went to Molly's stall. She moved the straw with her hoof. Under the straw, there was a small pile of sugar and many ribbons in different colors. 3 days later, Molly was gone. For a few weeks, nobody knew where she was. Then the pigeons said they had seen her on the other side of Willingdon. She was pulling a smart red and black cart outside a pub. A fat man with a red face, wearing check pants and boots, was stroking her nose and giving her sugar. Her fur was freshly cut, and she had a red ribbon on her head. The pigeons said she looked happy. The animals never spoke of Molly again. In January, the weather became very cold. The ground was hard like iron, so they couldn't work in the fields. Many meetings were held in the big barn. The pigs spent their time planning the next season's work. It was now accepted that the pigs were smarter than the others, so they made all the decisions about the farm. But their decisions needed to be approved by a vote. This system could have worked well, but Snowball and Napoleon always argued. They disagreed on everything. If Snowball wanted to grow more barley, Napoleon wanted more oats. If one said a field was good for cabbages, the other said it was only good for roots. Both had followers, and their arguments were sometimes very loud. At the meetings, Snowball often won because his speeches were great, but Napoleon was better at getting support between meetings. He was especially good with the sheep, even when it wasn't the right time. They often interrupted Snowball's speeches with this. Snowball had read old copies of The Farmer and Stock Breeder magazine in the farmhouse. He had many ideas for new things and improvements. He taught in a smart way about drains, silage, and fertilizer. He also made a complex plan for animals to drop their dung directly in the fields at different places each day, so they wouldn't need to move it later. Napoleon didn't have his own plans. He only said quietly that Snowball's ideas would fail. He seemed to be waiting for the right moment. But the biggest argument between them was about the windmill. In the large pasture near the farm buildings, there was a small hill, the highest point on the farm. After checking the area, Snowball said it was the perfect place to build a windmill. He said it would run a dynamo and give the farm electricity. This would light the animals' stalls, warm them in winter, and power machines like a saw, chaff cutter, vegetable slicer, and milking machine. The animals had never seen such things before. Because the farm was old-fashioned and used simple tools, they listened with amazement as Snowball described wonderful machines that would work while they rested, read, or talked. After a few weeks, Snowball had finished the windmill plans. He used 3 of Mr. Jones's old books to learn about building and electricity. He worked in a shed that used to be for incubators, where the floor was smooth and good for drawing. He stayed in there for hours, using chalk between his trotters to draw excitedly on the floor. His drawings became a complex design of gears and parts. The other animals didn't understand the plans, but they found them impressive and visited the shed daily. being careful not to step on the chalk lines. From the beginning, he was against the windmill, but one day he came to look at the drawings. He slowly walked around, sniffed the lines, then suddenly urinated on the plans and left without saying a word. The animals were divided about the windmill. Snowball admitted it would be hard to build. Stones, sails, dynamos, and cables were needed, though he didn't say how they would get them. But he said it could be done in a year. After that, they would only need to work 3 days a week. Napoleon disagreed, saying they needed to grow more food or they would starve. The animals split into 2 groups: vote for Snowball and the 3-day week, and vote for Napoleon and the full manger. Only Benjamin stayed neutral. He didn't believe either that the windmill would save work or that food would increase. Life, he said, would always be hard. There was also the problem of defending the farm. Even though the humans had lost the Battle of the Cowshed, they might try to take the farm back, especially because the news of their loss had made animals on other farms restless. As always, Snowball and Napoleon disagreed. Napoleon said they should get guns and train for fighting. Snowball said they should send out pigeons to encourage rebellion on other farms. One said they must be able to defend themselves. The other said they wouldn't need to defend if. Rebellions happened everywhere. The animals listened to both, but couldn't decide who was right, always agreeing with whoever spoke last. Finally, Snowball finished his plans, and the next Sunday the animals would vote on the windmill. In the barn, Snowball stood and, even with interruptions from the sheep, explained why the windmill should be built. Then Napoleon spoke for just 30 seconds, saying it was nonsense, and sat down. Snowball jumped up and passionately described a future where machines did the hard work and electricity powered everything. The animals were inspired and ready to vote for Snowball. But suddenly Napoleon gave a strange, high-pitched sound. At once, 9 huge dogs with metal-studded collars ran into the barn. They charged at Snowball, who barely escaped. He ran across the pasture toward the road with the dogs chasing him. He slipped once but got back up and kept running. One dog almost caught his tail. The animals watched in silence and fear. Soon the dogs returned. Everyone now understood they were the puppies Napoleon had taken and trained in secret. They were big and looked like wolves. They stayed close to Napoleon and wagged their tails at him, just like the dogs used to do for Mr. Jones. Napoleon, with the dogs behind him, climbed onto the raised platform where Major had once spoken. He announced that the Sunday meetings would stop as they were a waste of time. From now on, a group of pigs led by him would make all the farm's decisions in private and tell the others later. The animals would still meet to raise the flag, sing Beasts of England, and get their weekly orders, but there would be no more discussions. Although the animals were shocked by Snowball's removal, this news upset them even more. Some wanted to protest but didn't know what to say. Even Boxer was confused and didn't speak. 4 young pigs tried to object, but the dogs growled at them and they sat down. Then the sheep began loudly chanting, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, for 15 minutes, ending the conversation. Later, Squealer went around the farm to explain. He said Napoleon had taken on a heavy responsibility and only wanted to protect them. He warned that wrong choices, like following Snowball, would have led to disaster. When someone said Snowball fought bravely, Squealer replied that bravery wasn't enough. Loyalty and obedience were more important. He even suggested Snowball's part in the Battle of the Cowshed might be exaggerated. He finished by saying they needed discipline and that nobody wanted Jones to come back. The animals agreed, especially Boxer, who said, "If Comrade Napoleon says it, it must be right," and added a new motto, "Napoleon is always right." As spring began, the animals gathered every Sunday to receive orders. Major's skull had been placed by the flagpole, and they walked past it respectfully. Napoleon now sat with Squealer and a poet pig named Minimus, while the dogs surrounded them. The others sat facing them. After receiving their orders and singing the anthem once, the animals left. 3 weeks later, Napoleon surprised everyone by announcing they would build the windmill after all. He didn't explain why he changed his mind, just said it would require hard work and maybe less food. The pigs had already made detailed plans, and the work would take 2 years. That evening, Squealer told the animals privately that Napoleon had always supported the windmill and that Snowball had stolen his ideas. He claimed Napoleon only pretended to be against it to get rid of Snowball, calling it a clever tactic. When asked why Napoleon lied, Squealer laughed and repeated, "Tactics, comrades." Tactics. The animals didn't really understand, but believed him anyway, especially since the dogs near him growled threateningly.